Hi, everyone. My name is Kay Stevens, and I'm part of the audience team here at Bangor Daily News. Thank you all for joining us this evening. For those of you in the audience tonight who are subscribers, donors, or advertisers, thank you for your support. We'd also like to thank our tourmaline sponsor for the event, Harvard Pilgrim Healthcare. Also, a special welcome to all of you who may be joining in on our BDN events online meetups for the very first time. The Bangor Daily News aims to bring Maine together through fact-based journalism and through community conversations like the event we're holding tonight. If local journalism is important to you, please purchase a subscription to the Bangor Daily News. As a reminder, this event is being recorded. We will be taking questions from the audience towards the end of the discussion. So if you have a question that you'd like to ask any of our guests, please use the chat function and I will pose the question on your behalf. I'm now going to hand it over to Nancy from Left Bank Books to start the discussion for the introductions. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much, Kay. That was terrific. And we have such a wonderful mutual regard here from Left Bank Books with the Bangor Daily News. One of the good things that's come about from the pandemic is that we have indeed established this wonderful authors in conversation series, and we could not do it without the Bangor Daily News. So thank you very, very much for that. Thank you for joining us from wherever you are. As I mentioned, I'm here at the bookstore. We're in Belfast, Maine. We are celebrating our 17th year in business as a locally owned independent bookshop. And the only reason we're able to have such a successful history is thanks to our loyal clientele, to passionate readers, and to supporters of independent bookstores. Barring the occasional blizzard, we are open 7 days a week, year round. So come on in and visit us or send us an email, visit our website, whatever. Joining us tonight are two incredibly talented, creative women, and I'm eager to hear their thoughts on creativity and their insights into the creative process. Annie has written the Book of Errors. Annie is, you have so many hats, I'm not sure, you must have quite the chapeau collection. She's an architect, an artist, a designer, an interior designer, a textile artist, I think I read somewhere in there, a writer, and a teacher. With her in conversation tonight is Noël Claro, who designed the Book of Errors. And Noël is, I love this title, an originals creative producer at Netflix. And I'm hoping that you can take a moment and explain exactly what an original creative producer at Netflix actually does. We are grateful to you for your talent in designing this fabulous book. This is one of the most visually captivating books I've come across in years. It's also one of the quirkiest. And I say that as someone who seriously loves quirky, especially if you think quirky equates with being original, unusual, and unpredictable. From single quotes on a single page to beautifully rendered watercolor illustrations to reproductions of fascinating letters from the early 1900s. What intrigues me about this book is the way in which Annie has assembled these seemingly dissimilar elements to create her stories. I'm going to call it her scaffolding. What an amazingly intriguing story it is. This is the tale of three architects who shaped and altered the stories of three historic American houses. The General Henry Knox Museum, which is just down the road from us in Thomaston, Maine, the historic Francis Tavern in Manhattan, and the Betsy Ross House in Philadelphia. But it's also the tale of the preservation missteps and preconceptions of the people involved in reshaping these houses. It's a tale of imagination and possibilities that may or may not have happened. All I know is that every time I open this book, I'm sort of propelled into a different world where creativity and imagination live. And I thank you for that. A warm welcome to Annie and to Noël. Thank you for being here.
Wow, what an
wow,
awesome
thank you.
That was
my eyes are teared up. How am I going to go on?
really, Nancy, thank you so much for that intro. You touched on a whole bunch of things that Annie and I want to talk about. We made a little presentation that we're going to share. I'm going to share my screen so we can talk a little bit about how we put this book together. Just give me 1 second. Okay, everyone can see that, I hope. So it is so great to be here. Annie and I have been so excited about this. It's really actually fun to do this virtually because so many different people can show up and actually be in the room with us. And so when we started to collaborate on this project a while back, like pre-pandemic, it's evolved into this special little book that we have here that I love so much. I also really love the feel of the book. When we started, we knew that we were going to be dealing with a whole bunch of different kinds of materials, like you mentioned, Nancy. So we had photos, we had Annie's drawings, we had some historical artifacts like letters and one sheets from all the different cities that the houses are located in. And we started to look through a whole bunch of different kinds of printed pieces for inspiration. In our dreams, we wanted this to be a folder, like a folio with a whole bunch of these artifacts just printed and in there so you could sort of open it and experience the way that Annie experienced it as she did her research. But it would probably cost way too much to do that. So we decided to sort of reel that in a little bit and look at things that would inspire us as far as printing and die cuts. This book that you're seeing here, Love by Vani, is this little tiny children's book that's actually really sad. It's about dying and death, but it has these gorgeous, simple illustrations and die cuts and different kinds of paper stock tipped into it. And then we were also looking at binding and ink and color. On the right-hand side in that image, you see that little pamphlet with the 62 on the cover. That's from a type foundry called House Industries. And they use silver ink on that. And that's just sort of the kind of thing that gets our motor revved. Annie and I both share this love for printed pieces and for fabric and design. So we were also looking at really dreamy things like embroidery on the cover. I will just let this sit here for 1 second so everyone can absorb the beauty of it. It's an actual book that is so magical and so awesome. But also production values, we had to sort of keep that in mind, and we weren't able to do anything this elaborate. So we were also looking at layout, and for me, this is called I Don't Have a Favorite Color, and it's about how the Vitra Library developed their color sense. And it took me back to, I'm going to name drop here. It took me back to my days at Vogue magazine in the olden days when Anna Wintour first got there. And she developed this new section called the Living. And it was where we featured architects and interior designers and society people that had awesome houses. And it's all about swatches. So each month we had to think of new ways to do swatches. And so when we were looking at this, it really sort of took me back to that time and made me kind of make some connections between editorial design and Annie's book. Sorry, let me just, so this is actually sort of the key to how we zeroed in on what we wanted to do. And Annie, I'm going to pass it to you so that you can explain how you
So this is, we're sort of, well, we're promoting what Left Bank, maybe Left Bank Books gets to have some of these books. So we're sort of talking, I think, more about a bookstore, but anyway, but this book was super important in our process. It's a book by a British scholar who went through 19th century kind of 19th century wallpaper that actually had arsenic in it. But I really loved it because it was the first book that I'd ever seen where the visual the wallpaper was preference over the academic text. So in my sort of get paid for life, I'm an academic at Pratt Institute. So writing and scholarly work is something that I do for a living. And I love this book was even made that the wallpaper was bigger than the actual essay and writing book. And I showed this book to Bridget, and kind of there's a story of the book, but I think we did get to something very similar to this. So this was our muse in the creative process.
And I think what it also helped us kind of come to terms with was making this book that was sort of inspired by textbooks, where it was really simple and all the information was presented in a very clean way, text and image. So we locked in on that idea, on that concept. And as we did that, and I started to sort of design it and figure out copy fitting, Annie continued to explore and experiment. And she got this embroidered sample of one of her Betsy Ross drawings done, and sent the sample to me. And I just thought, oh, this has to be the cover. This is what we have to make, these for every single cover. And of course, like a girl can dream. We couldn't do that, but
it's okay. We know a lot of it was, let's put it out there and then let's pull it back. I mean, that's what you do. I mean, I build buildings, so value engineering is not a new condition at all. No, you can't have that tile. It's too expensive.
So as I started to work on page count and copy fitting and all the technical stuff, one night Annie sent me this really magical drawing that was so different and such a departure from all of the flat artwork that I had been dealing with, that was scanned in, and I had been plotting out how each house would look, how each chapter would look. And I think Annie likens this to stagecraft. It's like a diorama. I'm going to pass it to you, Annie, so that you can talk more about.
Yeah, I mean, this is the oval receiving room at the Henry Knox house, and the Henry Knox house is a house that I've been in love with and for a very long time, and it challenged me. I couldn't do drawings that talked about the three-dimensional experience of walking through that space. A flat two-dimensional drawing was just kind of boring and illustrative, and it wasn't talking about the experience of being in history, which I think is one of the most wonderful things about the Henry Knox house, that it actually has layers of history, which you have to read the book to understand it. But we'll talk about Miss Watts a little bit later. But so I ended up making watercolor drawings and bending them and making architectural models out of the drawings. And they're down in Pearl Street, and maybe someday we'll bring them to the bookshop to have them about at some point. But that was the big, the sort of tactility and the haptic nature of everything that I was dealing with. This was the real big breakthrough, that it's a book that we were making. We weren't taking information and putting it in a book. We were building and making the book.
And while that was happening, we were starting to explore cover options. So we're working concurrently on a whole bunch of different things and not locking into anything yet. But we did do some cover explorations for marketing purposes. And we came up with some really, really simple ones that we were still sort of following that whole textbook and more academic approach, where we would feature a drawing and just a really simple title treatment and really simple color palette. So we were sort of working with this for a while. And right after, actually the layouts that we did, sorry, let me just get, this is where we're headed layout wise for the interior of the book. Really simple, image next to image, and a very simple layout for Annie's essays. This is dummy copy. Don't try to read this. The only thing that's real is the Betsy Ross house. But it was really about featuring the illustrations and the artwork and making sure that then the historical information and playing with history was really separate. So you would look at the image, you would read the copy. Then we started to bust out into a more kind of playful and way more visual approach. And it was Annie's architectural model that inspired this new approach to the cover. Annie, I'm gonna toss to you to talk about this.
I mean, this was interesting because at this point, and I think I did everything sort of in an unorthodox way. Like I asked Noël to work with me very early on. I didn't sort of finish the material and then hand it over to the graphic designer. We really were sort of in there together, and I was, adding and manipulating things throughout the process. When Bridget Hughes, the head of public space, took this to a marketing meeting, took the very simple cover to the marketing meeting, they actually said, or this is how Bridget presented it to me to flatter me, I really think one of those beautiful drawings should be on the cover. That would be, that would make me want to buy the book. And it stunned me, and it made me super uncomfortable because the original covers were very modest, very academic, very serious, which I don't know what I was thinking because I never really think in a serious way. But so to sort of put the diva drawing on the cover was, I mean, it was hard on my self-esteem. I had to work through a lot of stuff to get this, and Bridget taught me through it. She really taught me through it. I was like, oh, well, they won't want to look at the book because the prettiest things on the cover, everything. But we finally put it on the cover, and the interesting thing is, once we started opening up the book, it became like that drawing. It became an architectural model. It became a three-dimensional space. It became an experience. Yeah. So I'm really proud of the back cover as I loved it when Nancy said, every time I look at the book, I mean, I want something different. I wanted something different to happen. And that was because the cover, when we were designing it, was giving me that experience.
And it also became this object that was almost like the folder we were dreaming of in the early phases. With the flaps became part of it. The artwork wraps around, and you'll see on the left the ones that are a little bit more, I don't want to say precious, but a little bit more studied, where the image is enclosed and you have your type treatment. It just doesn't feel as exciting or inviting to me. And so when we did bust out of that confinement, I think it really was like a big moment for us both. And that is how we arrived at this, which when you do see it on the shelf in my bookstore, which is my house, because I don't go to bookstores anymore, but I have a lot of books. So when you see it in your bookstore, it does pop, and it does look like something you want to pick up, and you want to examine it, and you want to visit with it. And then it started to sort of pivot editorially as well. And so instead of doing image text, we started to take a couple of cues from Bridget, where Mark Haig dipped in and added a bit of editorializing about some of the key players. This was for the Betsy Ross chapter. And this did sort of take me back to my magazine days, where we were really working out the type, and it was a little more design and considered. And then we also rethought the way that the historical artifacts would be handled. And we worked out a system where the copy was a little bit more digestible. We sort of pulled stuff out of the essays, featured the artifacts, and then treated the copy more caption style. And then Annie kept going. And like she said, we were working in this sort of unorthodox manner, which to me was really exciting. And I am here for collaboration like this. And she kept producing and came up with magical things like this, which Annie, can you talk about what this was?
That's a rendition of a Zubar wallpaper that's actually in the Francis Tavern in New York, which really has almost nothing to do with the story of the Francis Tavern. It was just donated, which is one of those things that I kind of love in historic houses, that it's a historical thing, but it doesn't really have much to do with the history, but you know how it is.
Right,
so that,
right.
Yeah.
But it added so much more to the book and made it so that there was, I mean, as you go through it, there are all these great surprises like that. And we're just going to wrap up our little presentation here with this, a quote from a review, a very delightfully titled review called A Playful Exploration of Preservation. A little rhymey, a little bit of alliteration in there. It's from World Architects magazine. And I think this writer really, really got it. She really understood that. She really kind of like figured out like what we were aiming for. And was just the way that she wrote about what Annie's done, I think is just spot on. So it's really a treat to see that out in the world and get an outside opinion like that. I am going to stop sharing now so that I can see everybody.
Yeah.
And I am going to see if we've got any questions going yet.
Do you guys know to put questions in the chat? I think we talked about that a little bit. Can nobody?
I'm going to riff a little bit while people might think about some questions, because Nancy, I am going to answer you and your question about what an originals creative producer does at Netflix, just to give you a little bit of a background of who I am and what I do. Oh, no, we're going to go for this first. What was each of your favorite part of the process? Annie, can I start?
No, of course, of course.
So it's a great question. And my favorite part was collaborating with Annie. So full disclosure, we live in the same building. So our collaboration was physically really easy. Artistically, we speak the same language. We are thrilled by the same things. We're both tactile. We both are crafty. I come from academia as well, so I know that world. And I think it was just pretty, I think it just went so smoothly and so beautifully that I guess it was a sort of unorthodox process, but I think it's just the way we both work anyway, to just sort of keep going, change things, keep going, change things, keep going. So that was my favorite part of the process.
I mean, the seamlessness of the process, it was really exciting. Well, I mean, I have a lot of moments kind of with the material. I mean, I love you a lot, Noël, but being in the archives at the Henry Knox house on a very cold December day was thrilling, and meeting Miss Mary Jane Watts, who was the spear, the woman that brought the idea of rebuilding the Henry Knox house to the world. And, you know, somebody has to go write a novel about her, and I'll do more drawings. So that was thrilling, and I love to draw. And then just the seamless meet you down on the bench in the parking lot kind of collaboration
COVID style.
is,
yeah,
COVID style. I mean, is just, you know, it's something that happens to you, I think, later in life when you're creative, that there's a quietness about making good work, and I never ever felt like it was going the wrong way, you know. And I'm picky. I'm a picky, mean teacher, right? So you know, that kind of seamlessness in a collaboration is really rare, and we need to do it again. Are there more? Oh, I'm seeing that.
I've got a lot of questions here. I'm gonna.
You do.
Field the questions. Annie, how were these particular these particular buildings chosen for the project? How did you decide which 3 buildings you wanted to work with?
Well, I've done work before about over-imagined historic interiors. So I had sort of a list of those things, and those things include the Atlanta Cyclorama, the Dennis Seaver's house. You know, there's things that are so non-historically correct. It's wonderful. And this became another category in that, where they were houses that were, I have a collection of houses like the House of Seven Gables, and there's some good German historic houses. You would never know that the Kaiser was there or wasn't there. There's a real history of that. But the book was going to be small. It was only 64 pages. So I had to pick the 3 kind of potent examples that I could get to of houses that I'm not going to say are not historically correct, because I actually believe that they are historically correct. They just have another evolution of history. So they kind of actually got a little COVID chosen. Like, I was going to do one more, Pensbury, and I couldn't, it closed really immediately. So I had been to these, so I was comfortable with those.
And I think I know the answer to this question. Which one is your favorite? I think it might be Henry Knox, but I don't want to say that, but I think that it is. Which of the 3 was your favorite?
It is. It's absolutely Henry Knox. And I'm not just sucking up because this is a Mainer audience at all. No, it absolutely, I mean, I could keep doing work on that building. I mean, I've talked to Ethan a little bit. I'm hoping I get to go back because you know, it was rebuilt kind of pre, you know, in the 20s essentially, and it's immaculate, and you all have to go there. And if you haven't gone there, shame on you, absolutely shame on you. But there's this cast of women characters who put the building together in this real colonial revival earnest way, that it could be a Netflix. Like, I need to pitch it. They're like amazing. They're my heroes. Yeah, exactly. So are there other?
Yeah, I'm gonna keep you going. Do you have any thoughts on examining other homes or structures as a follow-up? Anything else that sort of floats your boat about this imagined history?
You know, I'd like to do, you know, so what's happening in this world, in the historic house world, is weirdly au courant, like crazy. And there's a lot of, I'd like to do more academic work on buildings that had kind of dual populations. They had a enslaved population, and the Royal House in Medford, Mass is just doing an amazing, the curator there is a genius and doing amazing work in showing how the house was populated by the enslaved population and giving tours through their eyes rather than the slavers. So I'm interested in that. I think if I were to do a next drawing work in this vein, the House of Seven Gables would be my go-to, because it's kind of billed as Hawthorne's house, but it's the house next door to Hawthorne's house, and maybe it doesn't really have seven gables. It's up to, so it's got all these layers of these confusing things that I love. And it's pretty moody. I mean, it would be great to draw and get the watercolor set out and sort of work through that.
And where is that one? I think you mentioned earlier where it is. Where is that?
Salem, Mass.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So that's the one that didn't get in the book. But I would like to kind of work on that one.
Okay. This next one's a little spicy. What was the most challenging part of working with a designer that had to bring your ideas to life? Watch out, Annie, because I'm right here. So I'm hearing the answer. That's an edgy question.
What was the most challenging?
And it's okay, be honest.
See, I don't think that there was anything like challenging bad. I am because I am trained as an architect, and I don't know, y'all can send me bad chats if you're an architect too, but architects think they know how to do everything. And I disagree. And I think graphic designers do what they do and do it well. And I don't even want to try. I mean, I can barely do, Word documents. So I so respect what Noël does. And she's got this crazy great, training and taste and everything. So I'm so honest that I can't even make up a bad thing. No.
Well,
and you're super fast too, which is my New York. That's where I know that I've lived in New York too long, that if it doesn't get done, I get all anxious, but Noelle's faster than me.
I'm a New Yorker too. Yeah. So
yeah,
I think that makes sense. But I think also we were able to, we had some challenges along the way as far as timing goes, and printing, we wanted to go on press, but we couldn't because of COVID. But we did find a printer that was amazing in Baltimore. I mean, we had plans to take a road trip that didn't pan out, also because of COVID. But I think our challenges were never negative. I think they were just sort of motivating, right?
Well, I think we're also that type of people. You know, it's like, oh, not enough money for that.
Okay, let's see. Over the years, the powers that be at Francis Tavern have vacillated between acknowledging how much of the building is fantasy and denying it. What's the tenor there these days? And how does it affect the people that are experiencing the place?
Francis Tavern's so weird. It's such a weird place. Okay, so I don't know if you know it, but it's a restaurant and lounge. So that's sort of there. And then you go up. They in the last kind of 10 years, and there's like a big anniversary going on, they have reconfigured the long room that is supposed to be where George Washington gave this like sentence long speech. It's really, it was not a big speech. George Washington wasn't particularly verbose, it was sort of 2 sentences, but he said the farewell to his troops at the end of the Revolutionary War. So the kind of documentation of that room is really funny because it goes from, you know, a fancy living room to like an IBM boardroom, like really, it looked like that, to now a pretty accurate, but one of those very funny, oh, you just missed George Washington in the room type of tableaus. So it's a tavern tableau, and it has corncob pipes and a lot of pewter and, you know, all the, and a 3/4 hat, and you can just like kind of mark off all the historic house tropes are all in there. So you go up and you can have a tour of that room, and then across the hall is the Clinton room, which is a strange late 18th century room with the Zubar wallpaper that maybe the Clinton family donated, but now they're not even sure, you know. But it serves more as a Revolutionary War museum, and it has very large spaces with kind of in and exhibitions going in and out. So I think they're embracing its revolutionariness. But you know, that the
like air quotes, right? Revolutionary.
Yeah. But you know, it's the in the book, if you get a magnifying glass, there's a copy of a newspaper article that Meissero, the architect, wrote, and it's his case because he was really he was under fire for the changes he made when he kind of grafted the building together. And I have the most sympathy for him. I feel like I've been in that situation before where people are not happy with what I did. But so he was so resolute about the fact that big history happened, you know, and I love that an architect can want to see the history happen, but he's got to figure out where the plumbing goes. So, you know, that's the wonderful story with that project.
Okay. We have a question about what our next collaboration would be together. If it weren't literary, what would it be?
Literary.
If
I mean, I've got two. Well, I mean, we're talking about a smocking book.
Yes. That's more of a how-to book, right? More of a
little bit of a how-to
book. Yeah.
From my kind of textile work. And then maybe Noël knows, this might be news to her, but I am working on I feel like my big book in my life is going to be a book about the tradition of 18th century cabinet makers in London. And I've been drawing, you can follow on my Instagram, I've been drawing copies of Chippendale and Manwaring and Hempel White and all the great cabinet makers. I've been reproducing their drawings. So I'm up to about 70. There, I probably will have, I think I counted up to maybe 400.
All right. I'm here for that.
So, but I mean, you know, that is all that might be done when we're too old to go up and down the stairs to meet in the parking lot. So we'll work on it.
I love that idea.
Those are the two kind of, and there's maybe an academic. I'm never doing any work.
I want there to be a chair book though. That's what I want. I want the chair book.
Yeah, the chair book. The chair book. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's yeah.
Okay. Let's see. I think I'm not sure that I'm seeing everyone's questions because they might be coming in as direct messages. If there is something that anyone wanted to ask, if you just make sure you put to everyone in meeting, that might be a little more helpful. But I did want to actually address what an originals creative producer does at Netflix, just so that you kind of understand where I'm coming from. Even though I gave you my background, I am from academia. I am a prop mistress. I am a graphic designer by trade and nature and schooling. But I work at Netflix. That is my day job. And I am responsible for the images and the trailers that promote the shows to people on the actual platform of Netflix. So nothing that you see out in the world, like billboards or anything like that on YouTube, everything that you see when you log into Netflix. For all of the animated shows, that's what I work on. So I strategize about what those images should be. And then I work with agencies to determine how to make them, who to feature in those images. I work on a crazy range of shows. And I also work on the video assets, so trailers and teasers. So it's a really interesting job because it's very data driven, but there's also a creative aspect to it. And so in the past few years, I've had to sort of train myself to maintain my creativity and work on things like Annie's project. I will forever be a freelancer. You will not take that out of me. I will always have multiple jobs. That's how I sort of came up in the world. But this is a full-time job that is teaching me really different ways to look at things and really different ways to approach design. So I have learned so much in the tech industry that has really surprised me, all the stuff that I've picked up along the way in these past 2 years. And I get to watch TV for a job. So that is sort of the dreamiest thing ever, because I am a little bit of a TV junkie. And I watch a lot. I watch a lot of TV. And so it works out really well. It's been like, I feel like it's sort of the perfect job. So, okay. Oh, this is a great question. I love hearing about the design process and your book inspirations. Did you make hard copy drafts as you went along? I did. Yes, we did. We are,
you did.
We are seasoned women. So we come from the world of proofs, paper proofs. And I made dummy books. I made that, I think, Annie, you may have taken one of the dummy books up to Maine right when the pandemic happened.
Yeah.
And it's so different.
And I made a book. I mean, Noël made a few. I think I made like 2 or 3, because I was having a hard time with the spreads. And so I would secretly kind of make my own and draw on them and make notes and things like that. I mean, we are visceral, haptic people, and books are the last stand of that. So yeah, drafts, models.
And we did you saw the slide with all the mini covers. I made them small so that I could crank out a whole bunch. And we also kind of wanted to see a whole bunch at once. So yeah, we weren't shy to print things out and to make dummies. But wait, there's a really good question that just came in about the arsenic wallpaper, Annie. So you mentioned the witch wallpaper book. Was it common to print wallpaper with arsenic, and were people aware that it was poisonous?
It was not originally aware that they were not aware that it was poisonous. The short story, The Yellow Wallpaper, is potentially about the fact that there was arsenic in her wallpaper. It was a big phenomenon because people love that luminescent green. William Morris was very attached to it, and it was hard for him.
It was the color that it was
the color, the pigment had arsenic in it to get. So this book, Witch Fever, documents the whole phenomenon. And there was sort of a 5-year period in England where it was a craze and people were going crazy, and they kind of,
crazy from the art,
pulled back.
Right? Not crazy because we need that wallpaper because it's the newest, it's trending, right? Okay.
No, not, yeah. It affect, breathing it in affected you.
Okay. That is
intense.
Crazy. That's a murder mystery waiting to be written, I think, in the olden days.
Yes.
Okay, Annie, this is, I love this question from Nancy. How did you come to this life as a designer / creative person? Was it parental influence or?
Well, that's not true. That's true. My dad was a maker. He made things. He tied flies. He made small wooden boats. He kind of spent every evening making things. At one point, there was I grew up in Georgia, and the fried chicken takeout stand that was really famous was under threat, and he made a small little statue of this giant fried chicken. And I was, Dad, why did you make that? He was like, so I could remember it. And so we always were making things. But he was a stockbroker, and my mom was a real reader. I think imagination was super important. We lived in Winnie the Pooh, my brother and I. So I think that I didn't have enough confidence to really call myself an artist. So the world of design really opened up to me. Also, I'm kind of very pragmatic. So if you don't give me a job, like draw houses for dead people, if I don't have a job, I'm not really interested in it. So being sort of a artist a priori wasn't something I could do. So a designer was a really good job for me. Really.
And
so that's
did you know that you wanted to go to school for that? And did your parents support that? Did you say, okay, I got to go to art school because I got this itch?
I went to Bennington in Vermont. I was super, super lucky. I'd gone to performing arts school in Atlanta. There wasn't very college oriented, and Bennington gave me a tremendous opportunity with scholarships. And so I was there in that ethos of everybody, Bennington's a funny place. You don't go to study something, you are something. It's kind of intense that way, yeah. Right? So I was like, I guess I need to be a designer. So I kind of went in that path, and a lot of my choices, I'm very dyslexic. So a lot of my choices were out of not like, I really want to be a historian, but I can't do the heavy reading. A lot of my choices are like, how can I get to ideas and imagination without kind of circumventing the I don't want to say circumventing the rigor, but maybe
you could say that,
reinventing the rigor.
I think that's good.
Yeah. I mean, I do remember working at a bar in high school, like my senior year, and somebody saying they were in architecture school and all the lectures were pictures. And I was like, oh, yes. I could do that. So that was this kind of like, just give me the pictures.
Yeah.
I see a very intense Betsy Ross question that I'd like to answer.
Are you reading? Can I read it out loud, or
go ahead and read it out loud.
Okay. So what do you make of Betsy Ross, judging from the Philadelphia house, Do you have a sense of how she worked or ran her business? I think you do, right?
I do. And Bob, thank you. I'm so happy to have you here. Bob, I bet has been to Left Bank. You have to look at Bob's work. So Betsy Ross, and one of the things that my kind of mission with the Betsy Ross house was to sort of out the architect. He makes me mad a little bit. He really frames Betsy Ross as kind of a domestic goddess, somebody that sort of effortlessly made the American flag and graciously let George Washington into her home and serve tea and everything. And I think the Martha Miller book really puts her, she was a tough broad, and she liked her snuff, and she liked talking about this really pinnacle time when she made the flag. And I was really fascinated with the original photographs of the Betsy Ross house. And it was a building that in my mind was a commercial building. It was a shop. And I think Oki went in and domesticated it for kind of a 1930s, 1940s, what a woman should do. I think he really diminished her prowess as a businesswoman. I mean, she went through 2 husbands and maintained a business in that town, I think a pretty tough town for decades. And she was, I think Bob and I have talked about this, that she was an activist. She was really involved in sort of what the tariffs were doing to Philadelphia kind of during. She was, a labor organizer essentially for those kind of guilds that she was involved in. So my big kind of point of including her is, I think, the domestic framing and the sort of housey house framing of the Betsy Ross house is disingenuous. Because I think that was a workmanlike house. It was a place to make things. It probably looked much more like the Diderot métier rendition of an upholstery shop than
and what's
kind
the
of
difference?
a house.
Like, what's the difference?
It looked like a shop. It looked like a shop.
Okay.
It looked like maybe, and people sort of probably lived. It was a live workspace. It wasn't, sweet little canopies. I mean, I'm the wannabe historian, but it doesn't match up. The sort of nicety of the historic house as it stands doesn't match up with the industry that she was in.
Mm-hmm. I think Bob kind of knew that, right? I think his question was a little bit of a leading question, wasn't it? Or does he totally disagree?
I don't know. I can't remember. Maybe he doesn't. I don't know.
Okay.
It
was so specific. It was such a specific. It seems like there was a real opinion behind it. I think we have exhausted the questions here, but I want to say one thing before we wrap up. Annie, I want to thank you for allowing me to work on the project with you, because it was something that we started so long ago that it was something that I did when I first got to California, when I relocated for Netflix. It was that long ago. It was 2 years ago. And it was something that I was so excited to dig into. And the whole process was really awesome. And I've never worked on a book like this that was sort of historical, sort of academic, sort of design driven. There were just all these different things that came together, and it was just great timing for me. So thanks.
Thank you. If you were not downstairs, I would not have pulled it off.
Thanks to COVID, I'm back. So
right. So I guess if we're at that point, I will just jump in at this moment and say, we will be sending out a recap email to all of our registrants, as well as a link to the video recording of this discussion this evening and any other resources that might have come up in the chat. So be on the lookout for that coming up in the next few days. But I definitely want to thank Nancy and Annie and Noël so very, very much. And thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Thank you. It was great to be here. I wish I was in Maine. I got 4 more weeks. 4 more weeks.
We look forward to seeing you here. And, and Noël, we look forward to getting you into a bookstore. That's very...
I will get for one of these days.
Okay. And just for anybody who, just so you know, if you can't get into Left Bank Books to get your copy of the Book of Errors, we ship all over the world every day. So we look forward to seeing you here in person or online, via email, whatever. Just keep reading. Thank you. Thank you, Kay and Jo. Thank you so very much.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Take care.
Bye. Good night. Hope the power holds.